They are not receiving the state funding that they need to be able to meet the standards that the state has placed on the education programs in our public schools. So that is something that is a major concern in many of our districts.
And while he's getting this next question, I just want to point your attention to this little flyer that was on your table. If you don't have one, there's several up here. On here you will find a website called ACTS Ohio Tax. They mentioned the CUP data. CUP data goes back to 2010. It's all the data of the property tax that has come in and all the funding for the school, including what the state pumps into it. Very detailed. We are in the process of breaking that down by county over the 14-year span of data we have. So watch for that website. You can get a lot of information from that CUP data. I just want to let you know that. Go ahead.
Mrs. Workman, the only reason that I'm here is because you sent me a message on my phone, or I would have never known about this meeting. It must have been some mass text message or something. I want to thank you. Mr. Thomas, is it true that you talk on the radio a little bit? AM radio?
Yes.
WKBN?
Yep.
Yep, I've heard you several times. The guy's working hard for everybody here. I don't know him I was surprised to see him here.
I didn't pay you for that, so that's good.
Well, hey, you speak the truth, and I can appreciate it. My question is for the treasurer and the auditor. You guys are here clearly to field some questions, evidently, and it appears that you're an advocate to help the public here in Portage County. You have all of the resources and ability to inform the citizens in the county. Why haven't you taken those resources and utilized them?
Are you talking about the issues we're talking about here tonight?
Oh, I'm talking about, the reappraisal and what to expect. And I mean, you could send a mailer out to everybody in the county to inform them about what's going on and to advocate for this potential petition that they're going to put together.
Well, I can tell you, I just heard about the petition within the past couple of days, but what I will tell you is Treasurer Kennedy and I have been out to dozens and dozens of public meetings.
I know that.
Yeah. Talking about the radio. I've been on the radio talking about this issue also, for exactly the reason you're talking about, is to make sure people know to come to events like this, ask questions, find out what's going on. I can't tell you how many times that people have come up to the office or out on the street at the Ravenna Balloon Affair and said, hey, I'm already signed up for the homestead exemption. I don't need, well, let's check and make sure you are. About half of them, I find out they think they are, but they're not. That's a tool that we can use right now to reduce our taxes for the 65 and older age group. So that's, I think, a benefit of getting out, getting accessible to the public. Getting on the radio. I sent out at Aurora. I handed out 1,000 little postcards.
I've heard all that.
Yeah, okay.
I have. You already spoke of everything that you just said already. Currently, I was here. I heard every inch.
Okay.
But you have the ability to reach out to every homeowner in the county and inform them about what the movement is. Will you advocate to do that?
Well, 100%.
So I can expect to see a mailer in the next several months.
I won't promise you a mailer. That's something I'll put on the table. Just here's the thing. I want to work within my budget. And if I send out...
I think the commissioners are all here to support you.
And that's something I want to talk, that I'll talk to them about. But I will not stop doing events like this to make sure that an equivalent message gets out. And if it's within the budget to send a mailer out to every single household in Portage County, then I can do that to make sure people are informed.
Because this meeting is no different than going to one of our local school district or our school board meetings.
Right.
You get a minute percentage of the people in the community to show up.
Correct.
All right, and it's those people's jobs to tell everybody else. It's not a good way to do it.
The most powerful meeting you can go to in the county is a township meeting. I've been to Treasurer Kennedy, myself, the commissioners have been to those meetings. There's 3 or 4 people there at any given time, but those township trustees will get that message out to their townships. Now, you're not hitting a lot of people that night, but they get the message out to people, or at least they should. I'm not going to stop doing that. I don't think Treasurer Kennedy is, and I know our commissioners get out there also. If it comes down to a mailer, if that would help on this movement or any other issues, the state representatives, get on their websites and see what bills are out there right now. Inform yourself about the bills that are out there. I think what the strategy is, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you put one big bill out there to try and take care of the whole problem, it's not going to pass because it's just too cumbersome to get through the process it needs to get through. I think in looking at the bills that are in Columbus right now, that we're breaking it into small little chunks and passing each little chunk to the benefit of all counties in Ohio so that it gets done completely at the end of that process. But the key to us is, we're all here tonight because we're interested in what's going on. That's one thing. The next step would be to get on websites and find out what your state representatives are doing down in Columbus. Or read the newspaper, read the articles, get online, find out what's going on, get involved. Come to another event. Don't just come to this one, come to another event. Go to your township trustee meetings. So yes, I will keep that on the table to your, for your request.
We have a call to action May 19th, Project Promise. You have invites at your table. My name is Callie, I'm the media director of Project Promise. If you have a personal story of what's happened to you, please email us. And we don't have to use your name, but we want to turn your story into momentum for change. It's March 19th. It's March 19th. If you don't have it, visit our website, projectpromiseportage.com. Go visit our Facebook page. We have a media team that answers your emails. Please come to the meeting March 19th. We're going to continue questions now.
Hey, so thanks everyone for coming to us, these state representatives. So for all that money, the schools are doing good, right? Like the kids are educated, right? They can function, society they're functioning.
But they can't.
No? Okay. So I like that you guys are coming out. I think that shows a lot, but I really think they're playing everyone. I don't think they care. I think they have more influence than they let on. You have a county commissioner that owns a title company that can benefit or increase property taxes. I'm not saying that happens, I'm saying it can happen. What I'm saying is pay attention to who you vote for and put in office. I'm from the free state of Florida. I'm a carpetbagger, but I came up here for a mission to start a company that tracks these politicians, where they get money, how they invest their money, and I'm going to be on them. All over them.
Yeah, Chuck! Go, Chuck!
Damn right.
I have a question about the, I think somebody up here said that it should be fair in terms of how we pay our taxes. So if we're talking about property taxes, it's based on the valuation of your house. But from my perspective, we went through the housing crisis several years back, right? I didn't see the housing prices plummet as much as they're going up now. To be fair, there was a lot of foreclosures which were accounted for during that period of time. And my question is, why is that? It seems that if there's a lot of foreclosures, for whatever reason, that should bring the value of the houses down, just like now when they're going up. So if we had done that in the past, or do that in the future, we could even the playing field in terms of property tax valuation.
All criminals, every one of them.
Arm's length sales, same thing, they're not accounted for. So the auditors, the people doing the valuation are not allowed to take those into account. I don't think they're allowed to take them into account now or in the future. Can we change that?
Yeah, so actually just this afternoon, we had a meeting with the Department of Taxation, County Auditors Association, and a handful of state reps. We introduced a bill called Flip the Script, which is essentially currently that the State Department of Taxation has all of the authority, has really the full grasp of what values are. And of course, you don't want Columbus doing more than what we should be doing. You should be relying on your local great leaders to be able to decide and to see where actually the values and the market's moving. That bill has a lot of support. We're going to have first testimony ideally next Wednesday in the House. I think it's going to be moving very quickly. But to your question about foreclosures, at least in my county of Ashtabula, that was before I was auditor. I looked back at the values prior, 2008, and the 2011 update too. We did decrease quite a bit in our values during that period. So we'd have to look more specifically at what properties you're looking at. But I know that back then, during the Great Recession, we did decrease values. Obviously, right now we're increasing in values. And And this is something I'm warning my fellow colleagues about right now. We just had an update in 2023 in Ashtabula County. Values moved quite heavily. Then in 2024, because all the sales go through the auditor's office, I would look and see what the property sold for versus what was our old value. And on average, that higher sale price was about 20%. And so I'm telling our colleagues, this issue isn't going away, and you all are seeing that right now. It's actually going to get much, much worse. And that's another reason we're taking action, and we're going to be taking action this year to answer your question.
Yeah, well, arm's length sales are below market value, or at least according to the tax property records, are not considered.
Well, I'm not a state lawmaker, so I wouldn't have the ability to sign off on something, but, you know, the issue really is around cost. And I said this with Matt in our op-ed that we did last week, that a state budget is a reflection of what we value as a people, right? So if you were to excise, so to speak, the property tax completely, what value in terms of money are you going to assign to replace these very, very, very critical services and programs that we make available through property taxes right now? So I think that's where you have to start is, you know, is there a value proposition out there amongst us as citizens that says, yep, I value schools. Schools we know, are a big economic driver of our local economies. I understand that. And if you don't have a highly functioning public school system locally, guess what? You're not attracting a lot of young families to move into an area. Ravenna is facing such a hardship right now. So again, it's a question of what do we value and what kind of money are we going to allocate towards the things that we value the most.
I would 100% sign a petition to eliminate property taxes, and I like the funding, the alternative fund, making sure the alternatives are funded. We talked about that at our town hall meetings. Recreational marijuana, legal in Ohio right now. You don't have to like it, but the voters voted for it. Tax it. Use that towards the services we're talking about. Legal sports gambling. Again, you don't have to like it. The voters voted for it. Use that tax. Let's see if we can use that for the services we're talking about. You still got the sin tax, and I'm sure there's a lot of smart people down there in Columbus that can figure out some other alternatives. One thing I did see a headline recently, $400 million being asked for a new Brown Stadium. I can think of more houses up here in Portage County that need attention before we focus on an NFL team up in Cleveland. So that's just my opinion on that.
Okay, John, so address somebody. We have a treasurer, an auditor, and 2 state reps. So if one of those you think would answer the question best, ask it toward them.
I'd like to make a statement if I could.
Sure.
And I'd like our state rep and other people to listen to this. But I was a social studies teacher for 35 years, public school teacher. Funding is very near and dear to my heart. And I did a little research before I came, and I'll be brief. But the Ohio State Constitution was amended in 1851. And it required a thorough and efficient system of common schools throughout the state. Not communist, common schools in the state. Now this went on, and the schools were funded in different ways. Several decades ago, there was a Ohio State Supreme Court decision called Durall versus the state of Ohio, where a plaintiff challenged the state and said that their school funding system was not constitutional. The Supreme Court ruled 4-3 that it was not constitutional in order for the state to come up with a fair funding system. That has not been done. That was 1997. and we're still waiting. Now, you're talking about tax reform. Unfortunately, property taxes do play a big part in the funding of those schools. But I read your brochure when I came in here, my wife and I, and it said one of the long-term goals was to amend the Constitution, reform the funding mechanism for all services currently funded through property taxes in more balanced and transparent ways, such as sales and income tax. Gee, that makes a lot of sense. I can't figure out why nobody in Columbus has figured that out yet. So I appeal to you to please support your schools.
Okay, thank you for that question. I'm going to give Representative Thomas the mic. He wants to answer that, but I'm going to give you a little bit of fact here that I have. School districts in the state of Ohio have the right to charge income tax. Only 217, I think, out of 606 schools actually do it. So it's a whole mechanism for them to fund their schools that most of them do not take advantage of.
Thank you, and just to go off of that handful of things, first, that's an excellent point. At the local level, remember, the property taxes do not actually come to Columbus. Property taxes are solely a local function and pay for local services. In fact, the state of Ohio, our sales and income tax, the state of Ohio actually cuts a $2 billion check every year to local governments for the credits and to help with homestead, help with veterans, help with different credits that property owners enjoy. So property taxes stay local. Counties, villages, cities, schools could decide tomorrow, we have given them the tools. We actually don't even need a constitutional amendment. We've given them the tools to move that burden off of property and either onto sales or onto income tax or some variation of that. So we already actually have that ability right now. Now when it comes to schools, the Duralf decisions we all know happened many, many years ago. What those actually said, not that property tax itself was unconstitutional. Back during that time, we relied majority on property taxes for schools. And so how they actually viewed it was that depending on what student went to what district, you were getting a much worse education if you were in a poorer area because only the property taxes could support it. The court decision wasn't actually really looking at the taxpayers' fairness, they were looking at the students' fairness. Now since then, we've had about 7 different formulas. Currently, we're on our most recent one, the Fair School Funding Formula. We as a legislature, you as taxpayers, for your sales and your income tax, every 2 years has given almost $1.5 billion more to our public school systems than in the previous year. We as a state contribute from our sales and our income tax over $15 billion to public schools. We as property owners contribute several $billion less than that. So we do have a majority funded through our sales and our income tax. Schools are able to shift some of that, reduce their property tax, either have an income tax or decrease their tax rate as many other schools have done. But if you all hear that we are defunding public education at the state level, that is simply not true. We are funding public education more than we ever have with your sales tax and your income tax dollars. And we're attempting through many of our bills this year to decrease your property tax burden all the same. But schools can do that, counties, villages, cities, municipalities can do that right now as well.
May I have 1 moment? I have had the chance to speak with some of the schools in our district. And it is true that depending on your location or what district you're in or your property tax funding, some of our schools do feel the burden of being defunded in the governor's proposed budget. This is, there are many factors that are contributing to this understanding. However, the most recent governor's budget has fully funded the Cup-Patterson Fair School Funding Formula. They have fully funded the final phase of that funding program. So the only issue now that the schools have informed me, and I have some really great Board of Education members here I know that I've spoken with. The only issue now is that some of those inputs that they're requesting for additional funding have not been included in the governor's allocations. So that's where we're at, and we're in negotiation. And if they were, they'd be next to 1.5 billion.
That'd be an extra $1.5 billion that we'd be giving, in addition to everything from the property tax side, in addition to everything we've already done over the past several years. So as was said earlier, we have a spending problem in our local government, largely our schools, frankly.
And we've all come to rely on that, so it's hard to take that away. It's a negotiation.
We also have state programs that are not funded by the state, but they're mandated by the state that we only give partial payments on. Explain that to everybody.
If you would allow me to come to you, you have a question, let me come to you, raise your hand. We do have a line of other people. Thank you.
You want to let him finish? Or answer his question?
So his question was related to the state's demands on the outcomes or the expectations of our school districts in educating our children. So the concern is that
considered valid sales, at least in Portage County, and I think that that's irresponsible for the auditors not to take those into account, because that's a fair. I had a house that I bought, and they wanted to tax me at a value they thought the house was worth, rather than what I bought it for. So how is that?
Typically in the process, the bottom 10% is kind of thrown out when we're looking at total values, and then the top 10% are thrown out for whatever sales occurred. Now for your specific property, more than likely if you bought a foreclosure, your condition is going to be lower, your quality of the actual structure is going to be lower, so there should be some value changes, but would have to see that specific example. Typically foreclosures depends on how they happen, what type of sale there is. Is it an auction? Is it just a drive-by? Is it cash, that type of thing? But every property sale is going to be a tad bit different when it comes to foreclosures, so it's a tad bit difficult to get to.
Hi, I'm a little further south here. I'm Carroll County, so about an hour away. Wanted to see what you guys are doing. I appreciate the state people here and also the county people. I think you guys have done a wonderful job tonight. My question is, I was 5 to 10 years old when the Ohio lottery started. That was supposed to fund the schools. So, what I want to know is, what is the percentage, because they pay income tax on that wins. Is 100% of that go to the school, or is it just a small percentage?
Yeah.
And also, if you want to cut overblown administration, I'm sure they'd be a prime candidate, because all the commercials they run, I'm sure that, I'd love to know what the percentage of the admin costs or the intake is of the lottery revenue.
Sure. So you're exactly right. That's probably one of the number one questions I get asked is, isn't the lottery supposed to be paying for our public schools? So I said earlier, our state tax dollars, our state income tax, and our state sales tax contribute a little over $15 billion, billion with a B, towards our public school system, K through 12. Our property tax system all across the state contributes just shy of $14 billion with a B. So roughly about $30 billion goes towards our public school system. Now of that, the lottery, with 100% of their profit, I think there's about an admin expense of about 6% or so. 100% of their profit goes towards that $30 billion. Their profit is just shy of $1.5 billion. So the lottery goes towards public schools, but it's 1/30 of the expense that we have to fund our school systems.
Well, on a good charity, their admin expenses might be 2 to 3%. So I would shave off half of that in a heartbeat.
Sure. That's something we can definitely look at, but I always caution folks, marijuana revenue, for example, that's roughly about $600 million right now. The lottery is about $1.5 billion. Sports betting is right around $600 million or so too. So those are all things that we can increase, obviously, and contribute to. But it is crazy how much we spend, and this is part of our reform efforts, on public education, over $30 billion.
The other question I would have then, can the state there again, it's the admin overall, even with the school boards and everything. You know, the township, you know, how many townships are in each county? Most of them have their own grader, and they only use it 5% of the time. You know, we need to, as they said earlier, we need to look at this and cut it quick.
So those are really good questions. Thank you so much for that. I would like to just point out here real quickly that between the years 2020 to 2022, just 2 years after COVID, the administration costs of our K through 12 schools, public school systems, increased by somewhere around 70%. In addition to that, the benefits to provide to our administrators increased by somewhere around 160%. So the majority of the administrative costs are going to providing benefits because healthcare is so expensive. So this issue is not just about funding our schools, taking care of our children, taking care of our teachers, and making sure we're doing this right. It's about we have serious issues in other areas as well. So there's a lot to consider when we think about this. Do you want to take the next question?
I just wanted to add to that while she's going to ask. On that CUP data, you can see how many administrators there are per pupil. So if, once we get that data up, that's a very interesting look. We had a slide that we cut tonight. The number of administrators per student is out of control across the state. And that's something that your school board should do something about, but they become a rubber stamp to the superintendent or whoever because they don't take the time to look deep. So again, it's all hands on deck. It's all across the board. We've got to make changes. Next question.
I'm from Stowe, Summit County, and it's my understanding that they want to build 4 to 5 new schools and they're broke. And the other thing is, I was on a Zoom meeting with attorney Maurice Thompson, and they were talking about putting a cap on property taxes, not going any higher than maybe 3% per year. Do you know anything about that? And also, I've been to several school board meetings. I don't want to vote for one school issue because every time I go, they're talking about DEI, critical race, and homosexuality. I think that's all they teach in our schools. I'm sick and tired of it.
Stowe Schools is a very unique situation right now. I don't know if you guys know, they do want to tear down all 4 elementary schools, replace all 4 at the same time, and they want to double or triple your property tax to do it. And they are broke, but the chairman of their board doesn't care. They just want to keep spending money.
It sounds like you're voting no. That's the right way to do it.
Just vote no.
The attorney Maurice Thompson, do you know anything about that?
Yeah. So there are a good number of constitutional amendments that are floating around right now. That's one of them. What you all are talking about tonight is another one. There's always positives and negatives to each kind of idea. Like I said earlier, though, I always caution putting things in our Constitution. This is one of the reasons I supported issue, what was that, 2 years ago or 2 years ago, about increasing the threshold to 60%. Once it's in the Constitution, half of our battle with property taxes is navigating around all the different issues in the Constitution that we have to do. The 3% cap is an interesting idea. There's some good with that. Obviously, it wouldn't increase over 3%. A couple downsides to that: there'd be no incentive not to vote for levies because you're going to increase anyway. It'd be proportional, and so essentially your schools would be getting a big chunk of that increase. If your local township needs a fire truck or you want to vote for a road levy, they'll get their money at some point, but it'll always be much less. So, but at the same point, you're able to cap, you're not going to have those increases. Our goal with legislation is to greatly decrease the amount of unvoted levies that are increasing your property taxes. There's voted levies, there's unvoted levies. So if we can actually lower those spikes, which goes with the 20 mil floor, which goes with inside millage and a couple other pieces, that's where we're targeting, so that ideally your taxes will increase if you vote for a levy. And you will barely see something if you don't vote for a levy. That should be how it is. Or anything at all.
I apologize for speaking out of turn before, but I do have the microphone now. When we're talking about state funding as far as the schools are concerned, you kind of indicated that it's a problem from an educational standpoint. I'm talking specifically about, for example, we had to institute a new reading program The state paid for training of those teachers. They didn't pay for any textbooks. They didn't pay for any supplies for that, but they mandated that system. So it was up to the school system to offset that. That's just one of many programs that the state has implemented that we have to then fund because of the state implementations. I don't know if that's something that you're aware of or... Okay.
Unfunded mandates are a problem in the United States as a whole.
Well,
for everything.
I'm speaking specifically about the school board and about taxes. How many, do we have any school board members here? I'm a school board member too at Southeast. The Fair Funding Act that you're talking about cut $500,000 a year for the next 2 years at Southeast. That little munchkin that's in Columbus that you guys talk to occasionally, he's the one behind the Fair Funding Act. And that act is neither fair nor is it funding anything as far as we're concerned. The other thing, that the homestead exemption, and I respect you guys, I voted for most of you guys, some of you because you're not in the county here, so. But part of the problem is with the homestead exemption is that it's such a small percentage, and I guess what I would say to you guys is don't lose sight of the ball with the homestead exemption. That homestead exemption, even if they double that, isn't going to really significantly help you. That's a small percentage of what your property tax is. The other thing that I want to mention to you, and I don't know if it's a question or not, but I'm 70 years old. I served on the school board in 1977 in Nordonia Hills. One of the main issues in 1977 was property tax. In 50-some years, the state legislature hasn't done anything to resolve that situation. And that's part of the problem with both of the state representatives that we have here. I commend you for being here. I love the fact that you guys are here and the rest of them aren't and don't show up for those things. But the problem is, if we're going to rely on state representatives to do this as far as the funding is concerned, it ain't going to work. The only thing that I see after 50-some years of hearing about this is that a constitutional amendment to get rid of property taxes is a way of funding schools. Now, I haven't looked in detail at your proposals, but I'm sure that's something that can be worked out. It's something that can happen. Finally, the last point I'd like to make is that you are the people here that we need on school boards. I can't tell you how many votes I've lost 4-1, 4-2. You guys, in fact, this Saturday, 10 o'clock at the Republican Party headquarters, I will be there. If anybody here is interested in running for school board, meet me at the Republican headquarters at 10 o'clock Saturday, and we can talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. It is much appreciated. And I have to say that I was kindly invited to join a Board of Education meeting at Southeast Schools, and I was informed firsthand the struggles that they have with their funding and the governor's Fair School Funding program. So I certainly take that into consideration when I go and work for you in Columbus. However, I do want to say, although I am a freshman, I am doing everything I can to fight on this issue. So there needs to be credit given where credit is due. I'm going to fight for you. Representative Thomas is fighting for you. A third of the legislature turned over and they're freshmen, and many of them are going to fight for you. This is an issue that resonates across both sides of the aisle. So I will say that again. We can come together on this. This is a nonpartisan issue, and we are fighting to do what is best, including taking care of our youth in the schools, and we will do that to the best of our ability. But we have to balance the budget, and that's a big part of this as well. Thank you for your comments, and thank you for the invitation.
We have a veteran in the house of 21 years, and I'd love to get an applause for all our veterans, and I thank you.
Well, I just want to say that, make a statement really, and then perhaps ask a question here. But if there's somebody in this group and your people that you have working for you under you, how many senior citizens had already lost their home within 3 to 5 years? How many? That will give you something to put in the kitty to say, we need to change this. 11 million people in the state of Ohio, a little plus, a little more than 11 million. So how many? 1 million? 2 million? Some of them sleeping on a bridge. I'm coming up on 80 years old this summer. I don't want to lose my home, you know, just because of taxes. We never own it. So their homes may go up for the sheriff's sale or something. I don't want to be in that boat. So if you could find out and put it out somewhere, put it to the whole house. We've had that many senior citizens lose their homes. Where are they today? Thank you.
My name is Iris Meltzer, and I'm a Kent resident. I've been here in Portage County for close to 50 years. Thank you all for coming, and all of the elected officials. I think it's important that we see you and you see us. I do have a question probably directed primarily to the two state reps that are here. There's been a lot of bashing tonight of the amount of money going to public schools and bashing of public schools themselves. My question is, how much of the money that you've indicated are going to public schools are actually going to charter and private schools?
Sure, so of the $15 billion that I mentioned, that is the public school portion. Now, Ohio believes, and I firmly believe this, I won't speak for Representative Workman, Ohio believes that the money that we all pay in our taxes should follow the student. That what's in the best interest of the student should be what is their educational choice. So we do have a very strong voucher program here in the state of Ohio. For students where their public school does not meet their need, they're able to have then the option. Our property tax does not follow the student. Our property tax stays with the local school, but our state income and our state sales tax does follow the student. Now, I have a very hard time agreeing with the idea that if there are less students in a school, that school should still be receiving the same amount of money for not educating the less students. So,
Passed on to the charter school. It passed on to the charter.
the money follows the student. When the student graduates, the money ends. The money should not still be going to the public school that is not educating the student. Thus, the public school will lose some of that money because they are not educating the student.
You do understand, I assume, that most of those who are families that are receiving vouchers for private schools are already attending private schools.
And I would say that their tax dollars, which they pay for education, should be following their child, their student, who is getting the best education possible for them.
Well, first of all, my name is Frank Harrison, longtime Portage County. So this is for our state reps, because I've already talked to Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Kelly, and they stole some of my thunder tonight, so I appreciate you listening to me. But folks, we have something down in the state of Ohio called a rainy day fund. And I don't know how many of you know about the rainy day fund, and some of you might know about it. But there's $4 to $5 billion sitting down there. And guess what? They call it a rainy day fund. It's a monsoon on us. It's a monsoon. Our seniors, our veterans need to be taken care of. And then the rest of the folks. So to our state representative people, everybody's talking about marijuana funds and this fund. We got $4 to $5 billion sitting down there. Go to work for us. Put some of that money to work for people now, because it's a big day.
So that's a great question. Rainy Day Fund, the state of Ohio, is less than 1/2 of a month of our expenditures at the state. The state budget is roughly $90 billion. The Rainy Day Fund is right around, as the gentleman said, about $7 billion or so. We could use that. We could give it back. We could share that all around. That would not go anywhere. The amount of money, when you look at the actual total property tax, when you look at the total taxes that we all owe, that's kept so that when we do have a strong recession, which we all know at some point we're going to have to, the money in the rainy day fund right now is right about solid. It's right about there. We're not really going to be increasing it. It's kept so that we can continue essential services if the sales tax, if the income tax of the state were to go down. We could deplete it tomorrow. That would be very easy. You would get a very small check. You would then do what you'd like to do with that very small check. But then we wouldn't have the funds there to be able to continue the essential services that you would expect when the money runs out. But to use the rainy day fund right now, we could. You would not really see a difference. I try to be as straightforward, as blunt as people as possible, but that is not a silver bullet, that's not a helpline, that is a trickle for our taxpayers.
I disagree with you, but that's fine.
So I would just like to add a comment here. All of this is still under discussion. Bills are being introduced just now in the General Assembly. This is a process that takes a little while, and I know that nobody wants to hear that, but it is just part of the process. So we are down there advocating for you, prioritizing property tax reform, and working hard to do this right and balance the budget. I will say, throughout the process, we have been able to take a deep dive into the governor's recommendations for the budget, and we have gone so deep that a lot of waste has been discovered. So the intention is to pull that waste out and reallocate it so that we have some real money to provide relief for our citizens and those on fixed incomes in the most dire need, those that are at risk of being displaced. So we are looking at that. I'm hoping we can be successful in that effort, and I'm working every day to do that. In fact, all last week I was working on amendments, so just something to be aware of.
Barb Tittle here again. I too have lived in Portage County for over 50 years. I have a practical question for Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Kelly, and I appreciate the fact, it was required, that you sent out the notices last year about the changes in property taxes and what you were going to be taxed on, and I was able to use that information to take advantage to explain my situation to the informal appeals people. My question, though, is I understand that all of those available appointments for that informal